All right, Klefbombers, we're back. We're talking rivalry week coming to an end, and going into week 9 here. 2 weeks left before postseason. I know 5 teams have now clinched, so we got one spot left open, but really it's a
That's
long
me.
shot. And I know you're a little worried, but I'm not worried for you. Really, all it
No.
takes is one team to not get the full max points down the stretch, and you're in. As long as someone doesn't go 2-0 and you go 0-2, right?
That's the thing. And I mean, just before we recorded that, we were just going over our total losses for tiebreak. And I feel like my number was relatively low to what I was expecting. So the reason I say that is that if I end up in a tiebreak situation, that made me feel a little bit more comfortable.
Yeah, totally, totally. Yeah, I don't. You probably have the
Is
best
it, do
because
you think we should maybe just clear that up while we're at it? The
yeah,
the,
let's
the
talk. Yeah, let's
tiebreaker?
talk about it. You have a better grasp on it. I understand it, but you can explain it. Go
Okay,
ahead.
so it's basically whoever lost least.
Yeah,
So the best way to do it is if you go to your win loss for the total stats for like game winning goals, shots, hits, start or wins, whatever, each total category, the least amount of losses. So what we did is we just added up our total losses. We ignored win loss.
yeah.
So obviously whoever has the least amount of losses will win. If you're then tied at the same number for the least amount of losses, it would then be whoever has more wins in a category. So
Okay.
basically, whoever's stronger. So there's multiple tie breaks, but that's what it would be. And then that's for regular season. And come playoffs, it's going to be reseeded, and it's going to be your opponent in the regular season record.
What if do you know
So
what it
that's
is if
the
you tie?
difference.
If you tied during the regular season, then it goes to the season tiebreak probably.
I think.
So like me
I
and
think
like
so.
for instance, me and Dylan tied during the regular season. So if we tie in the playoffs, I'm kind of
I what I don't know is, are they going to take the least amount of losses in your category or your matchup, or are they going to take the least amount of category losses for the year? That I
mm,
don't know. You know
mm,
what I mean? Like I don't know if they'll just take your tie. So it's because they can't take your tie as the differential. They might just look within that matchup. If you tied four and one lost more than the other, which wouldn't even make sense, would
no,
it?
no, it wouldn't. It'd be the same amount of losses.
Yeah. So you'd have to go full season, I guess, right? So I guess that's the tiebreak.
Yeah, which kind of unfortunate because that means I don't really have a lot of tie breaks in my pocket at this point. Um,
It
Definitely,
basically rewards people who go like this and not
yeah,
the ups and downs, because
uh,
the ones where you'll lose. I also got lucky. I had two wins where I was like 10-1 or 10-2.
yeah.
So
So
that could end up helping me a lot.
yeah, definitely could. Okay, so we don't have any trade deadlines or any trades that we normally do
Trades
that
to
takes up
announce.
half the
No,
show. So I think we'll likely have a somewhat quicker show than normal,
I
but
was thinking that.
I think we can look at the past waiver bids of this past week. I think you had it written. There's only one.
There was only one, and it was me getting Jonathan Marsh's show back.
Yeah.
It was the second time I got him, obviously, after you dropped him a while ago. This was really a longer term play. He was one of the guys that on free agency, I felt like if I had to keep a guy on my roster from here till the end of the season, who do I want to bet my money on? And I just felt he he just seemed like he was the right guy. And if somebody bid more than $4, I would have been like, whatever. There's another
Mm.
guy that's just as good. Again, me getting my guy, I just figured, at $4, if somebody wants to go crazy, have him.
He's a boom.
But
He's
he
a
seems to
boomer.
fit.
Definitely
Plus,
heading in the playoffs, he can boom for a 3 point night pretty easily with
for
this
sure.
team, right?
And I just want his shots. Like that's the biggest thing I like off of him is
Yeah.
the shots, and he is capable of getting 6, 7, 8 in a night.
Yeah.
Mind you, not always, but he averages over 3.5 shots, which is better than most on free agency. So like I like that about him. And obviously he's performed well the last 2 years. And for me, I only had two. I had one center and a center wing. So it was kind of helpful for me to get another center wing, just to provide that extra bit of flexibility, maybe on a Saturday or on a Wednesday when everyone's playing.
Okay.
But
No, that makes
beyond
sense.
that, nothing too
He
crazy.
does. He does have that benefit. That was actually a good point. But Yeah, so I guess that's pretty much it. Not a lot to talk about with trade deadline over. I guess we can just look into predictions for last week and how I don't know. I guess
Hmm.
rival. I can't say that word apparently. Rivalry.
Second of rivalry week.
Yeah, how it came. It was kind of similar to first week in that it was anticlimactic. For the most part, I
Very
think.
much so.
Again, it came down to pretty much. I think even though the scores ended up being a lot closer than heading into the last day.
Yeah.
Mine and Jesse's was really
But there
the
was a lot of matchups where it's like a 5-4, but like somebody's up 7 goals and the other one's down 9 assists, and it's
yeah,
like
like
these
yeah,
are already decided.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Prediction wise, for whatever reason, I chose not to bet against myself. Maybe is a little bit of a secret pocket play to make myself win. Come out there with the 6-5 victory. But I honestly played the whole week down 2 players. Tom Wilson not in all week,
Yeah.
and Georgiev played 1 period. So I never made any
Yeah.
moves all week because kind of just holding those close to my chest at this point, hoping it pays off in the long
Hmm.
run. You and Nick, you said, and rightfully so, you were out of it for basically midweek. Score turns out a lot
Yep.
closer, and
Before that, I felt like I was didn't have a chance at all to start the week, let alone halfway through the
yeah,
week.
I had
My
faith.
goalies have been crippled, right? And we've talked about
Yeah,
this a lot. Like with my analytics strategy, it's goalies and then the shots and the hits. If I don't get the goalie stats,
you're
I
toast.
got shots and hits maybe, and Nick took those also. So like I had nothing to beat him on. I
Yeah,
had 1 or 2 categories I had a chance on, and it was just like whatever.
yeah, and you had a super long shot heading into that last game that you were telling me about. You needed like 3 goals,
Yeah,
10 hits, or whatever, right? So that's
yeah.
the beauty
Three
of it.
goals, 10 hits, and one to be a game winner.
The beauty of it though with our league is that even though
Yeah.
you're out of it midweek, you still kind of have that chance. Run
I
those.
will say, if I had 5 more ads, I would have won that week because I would have used 2 or 3 more ads, and I would have got those things I needed.
Yeah,
But I have 11 ads left, so like it's
for
I'm
possibly
cutting it
five
close
weeks.
as
Yeah,
is. So like, and I couldn't use the ads and lose anyways. So I couldn't take the risk. I had to just take what came to me, and
exactly.
unfortunately, it was the back-to-back losses.
Yep,
Is what it is.
totally makes
I'm gonna
sense.
lose my way into the playoffs, but that's a different thing we'll get to. Yeah. So you went 2 for 5 last week on the
Yep,
matchup predictions, and I
yeah,
went a 4 for 5, which is tied with your previous week as the best predictions yet.
yep.
I must say I don't think we're gonna have a perfect week this year. I don't
No,
think anyone's gonna project a
so hard to
perfect week,
predict.
specifically with ties.
So hard to
Yeah,
predict.
without guessing ties. Also, like
Yeah,
it's
because there's been
I
like
can't have one single tie.
I think that this year we definitely had more ties than last year. Um, I think last year we only had 1 or 2 throughout the whole season, to be honest.
Yeah,
Um,
which was kind of surprising, and I think we talked about that at the time that we were a bit surprised to only see a couple.
yeah.
I think this is more in line with what we should expect. Like I
Hmm.
think if you don't have at least one tie per season, that's the under. I think probably it's a half is
Yeah,
the over under.
yeah,
Maybe even probably higher than that. Probably 1.5. For full season, it's probably like 3.5, 4.5.
yeah. Full season, I guess we have
For
like more than double the games, right? 23 games.
22 to 24 weeks, I think, is what the number screams in my head, which is we had 10 plus playoffs this week. So if we had 22 plus playoffs, it's more than double, right? So it's
That's part of the shame of having this short season is that right now we'd be right around the middle of the season right now, and it'd be a thick battle.
it would be insane.
It would be a thick battle. Trade deadline would be starting to come up, but nah, instead we're short season, but it's gonna be good, and we're gonna be right back at it within like a few months, really.
Hmm.
Um, yeah.
We'll see if Ben can get any closer to the playoffs next year.
Well, that's why I was looking at it. We have a potential. I'm surprised because I know we talked about it at the beginning of the season. We're gonna have probably like Steve has a long shot to get in right now, but we'll probably have 2 people that missed last year missing again this year,
Hmm.
which like, it is what it is, right?
Hmm.
But
It's tight. It's tight league. Like that's the thing I've told Ben multiple times. Like you got to be active. He's like, I am. I know. I'm like, I know you are active, but like you got to be more active. Like with the ads, like you have to use 2.5, 3 ads a week, at
yeah,
least one or
and
two.
you can't be adding people the day after their game like he did at the
Yes.
beginning. I don't know if
Yeah.
anyone pointed that out, but
Well, I,
especially
I mean,
goalies. He did that a
I
couple
don't want
times
to
with goalies.
I don't want to blast him too
No,
much, but
of course not.
he thought that when the players were on the bench, they didn't count on your roster spot. So, for example, you
Okay.
have a goalie on your team, it's goalie X, and he plays the best team. You're like, I don't like that matchup. He thought, okay, I'll put that on my bench, and then I'll add a better goalie matchup because he's not on my active goalie spot. He thought bench was just okay. They're benched. I can just open that spot for
Yeah.
somebody else.
I
So
think
that's why he was acting like that for a bit. But I helped clarify that
no, it's
after a
good.
while.
And if you're new to fantasy, it takes a couple
Yeah,
years. Like I'm now in
for
like my
sure.
fifth season. My first season I went I think 0-10 in your league or something when I was Gary Bettman, the league. I
Yeah.
didn't win a single game when I played with you guys.
Uh,
And now my rating is the highest it's ever been. I'm halfway to diamond now. I'm pumped about that. I'm gonna get diamond. It's gonna be great.
yeah.
Nick was the only
Yeah.
diamond I've ever seen, and he lost that title. So unless he got it back
Yeah.
recently, which he
I
might have. But
I had it for a while, but because I was commissioner, I think I said this a couple episodes, because I was commissioner for even baseball and stuff, guys wanted to see what like roto leagues were like and
yeah,
total
yeah.
points. And so we kind of like did a pool and then we did like a mock pool on the side to see what the difference would have been if we did like points versus whatever. So like I have probably like 20 teams on my profile where I'm like first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and then Nick's like sixth or something like that. So,
Mhm.
or like not six, but he's one of the six guys and I'm the five other ones. So when I'm, even if I was first, second, he's third, I'm also fourth, fifth, sixth.
Yeah.
So like it balances everything out. And I don't think I'll ever be able to get that status now because of that. And I'm not willing to start over again. So I'm just like, is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Like technically, yeah. You're not like super far. You only need like 39 points. You just need to go 2-0 because you're in two pools, right?
Yeah.
You need to go like 2-0 like only like 15 weeks in a row or something.
Oh, okay. That's
it's
that's
not
not too bad at
it's
all.
not like out of reach, but yeah, I feel you. I feel you for sure there.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
But yeah, so I mean, in terms of the predictions, you had your matchup wrong, Dylan's matchup wrong, Jesse's matchup wrong, my matchup wrong.
Yeah.
Um, what surprises do you have there, or what ones stick out to
For
you?
me, honestly, I was surprised I won. I talked about it all week. I don't bet against myself, but I didn't think I had a chance. Just I was down like
Yeah.
10 games played almost on him, 8 at the beginning of the week, and somehow I almost won hits too without Tom Wilson, which is insane. But my goalies
Yeah,
played insane. I got 2 shutouts. So that the shutouts really
that helps.
what won it for me, and I didn't lose game-winning
Yeah.
goals. I tied game-winning goals, and I didn't lose. So, uh, I luckily ran into his team. Not we both. I think if you looked at the entire league, we both have the least amount of points throughout the week. Uh, so I ran into a
Hmm.
very cold Jesse team. So I got lucky there. Another surprise for me would have definitely been Sean, but
Taking down Dylan. Yeah.
yeah. But looking at his strategy, it worked. Goalies. That's
Yeah. Yeah.
so. I
Hey,
think
Sean's going back to his comfort zone, and
one
I'm
goalie.
I'm good with that. Like I think it sucks for him because like I think the timing of the whole Hellebuck thing screwed him over. And then obviously now that he decided to trade him, he's playing well or pretty good for Jamie anyways.
Yeah.
And then it's the same thing I feel like what I did with Joey and Flurry, where you kind of like move on because you're like, it's the numbers are pretty similar to other stuff available. And then all of a sudden it clicks in and you're like, I moved on too quick from that.
Mhm.
So it'd be interesting to see if he gets him back or whatever happens there. But I found it interesting when Jamie was asking about if anyone had a rental spot, because I was looking at his team and I was trying to figure out who the fifth guy was that he was trying to get. But
I
maybe it's
never
a guy
looked.
off the team.
Yeah, I never looked at his roster to try and figure out who he was trying to keep.
Hmm.
To be honest, maybe he's trying to keep both goalies that makes sense.
Maybe. Yeah.
But yeah,
I have a trick up my sleeve potentially for what I plan to do. I'm
oh
just
my
waiting
God,
to see if I can
here
pull
we
it
go
off.
again. Well, I got a rental spot available for those people out there. It's gonna cost you, but I'm thinking I'm only gonna
Interesting.
keep
I'll keep
3, I
that in
think.
mind.
So I think it's pretty
Yeah.
set who I'm gonna keep. Yeah. Uh, one of my
I'm
decent.
gonna try and pull off another blockbuster in the off season.
Not surprised. Why am I not surprised? All right.
But I might need to take you up on that keeper spot if that's the case. Might have to do a 3-way trade where you get the guy and then keep him for me.
Makes sense, and I don't know. It's gonna come down like how these playoffs go. It might if my team fails, it's time to blow it up. Time to blow it up.
Yeah,
Two
and that's
keeper
the thing.
spots for
This
rental.
next year, you called it. This next draft is going to probably be the worst draft ever in the history of our pool.
Yep.
And like when I was looking at the picks, and even 6 rounders to me are nothing to really write home about. And like I was trying to project who, because I have, I think off the top of my head, at least 4, maybe 5 picks in the top 60 outside of my keepers. I think it's 5 picks in the top 60. And like there's like 3 or 4 guys I like that might last to 60th pick. So it's like chances are when I get down to the 5th and 6th round, I'm going to be picking guys that I don't really love anyways.
Yeah.
So like I'm a bit nervous that I'm just going to be like, well, I guess I got to pick this guy cuz like he's the common sense pick, and then those guys rarely turn out
Yeah,
for
those
you,
guys.
right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
And that's what is scaring me a little bit. So I'm curious to see if there's anyone out there who wants more picks. That being said, I know some people would just rather take new picks, and I'm
Next
hoping
year,
maybe I can find somebody who
I
can
think
take my picks for one more player.
next year could potentially be the one. Obviously, first season was a good year to tank, but next year is going to be a good year to potentially load up on draft picks too to have a pretty stacked team the following year because you're going to have people that next year will be going in like the 4th, 5th, 6th that won't be going until like 10th, 11th, 12th the following year. So it's going to be a much more loaded draft.
Absolutely.
It'll be cool.
It's going to be good, but at the same time, I don't think picks, 9th round and later are that valuable, especially when you see a lot of the later picks, the Paciorettys, the Kachucks, whatever, that were taken 7, 8, 9. Those guys are all now going to be pushed to the front. Plus, you got to think the guys whose clocks are expiring. Any of those players on the rental teams are now rental players. What's the value? How soon do they move off that? Who and when is the team that gets them to budge on that? And if you can get them to do that, sooner than later, if it's a full season, it could be one of those seasons where I have a feeling next year there's going to be 2 or 3 teams that just run. And then there's going to be that middle pocket of like 4, 5, 6, 7, maybe 8. And that I think that there's going to be like an elite tier, the middle pocket, and then the 1 or 2 bad teams. I just have a feeling next year is going to be a really what's the word? Like not separative, but separation. Like there's going to be a lot of separation between the teams. But
maybe it's kind of worked that way the first season too, though. We had a pretty big separation. Bottom 3 pretty much 2 of them gave up like week 6, which I don't know if teams will realize to do that I think they'll realize how much longer the runway is, but maybe not. Maybe I'm wrong.
But at the same time, I think what we talked about too, where people are like, hey, there's this guy and he's only that one level better than free agency. I'm going to move off him because I want the picks. I'll find another guy. There's going to be more guys where you move and you look back and you're like, crap, I shouldn't have maybe moved that guy like we just talked about, right? Like with Fleury, with me, I probably looking back at this exact moment, wish I didn't make that trade. But obviously I can't go back and change anything, right? It's just I got to learn from it. So
definitely
those will be the ones that are interesting.
Okay, that makes true.
Yeah.
All right, you want to look at some of this week's matchups? Early start this week. I was surprised I logged in at 2 in the afternoon and the week had started. It caught me off guard a tad. But so we already got some scores in the game completed, and we're an hour into the other games. So but that's okay. It's Monday. We'll start off with wise guys, Rundles Puckets, Joey. versus Jamie. Prediction wise, I have Jamie winning this one. I just know he's going to be giving it his all. He has the lead now in the President's Trophies race.
Plus the ads.
Plus, exactly that. Plus, he'll go for the ads. I don't know, like Joey's got a good team.
I guess Joey can too.
He could. Do you think come playoffs?
I think if Jesse wants to, or Jesse, I think if Joey wants to go for the throat and use all his ads, I think he can win. But
agreed.
I think it's going to take that to take Jamie down.
Agreed.
This week, anyways.
Agreed. Yeah, I don't know.
Next matchup.
Yeah, not much else to say on that. We got Rocket Trees versus Dynasty. This is going to be an interesting. I think this one's going to be closer than I give it credit for.
I don't think so.
But I did pick Nick.
Yeah.
I don't know. Demko's continuing.
After speaking so much on my strategy with the analytics and all that other stuff, Nick's found a better way to have that analytic strong approach. And I just feel like, I've said this multiple times, no one else is built that way. So like, if Nick's performing at his model, I don't know who matches up well against that. So at this point, I hope I don't face him in the first round. I think that would be the biggest disaster for me, is to have to face Nick. I think that's the worst possible scenario, because then he can just add those physical shooters, and then he's got to force me. Do I want to keep a Taylor Hall if he's not performing? Do I want to keep, a Letang if he's not shooting? I'm going to have to make those decisions and cut bait with talent to get physical, right?
He is the only guy in the league right now that is running no defense at all.
Yeah. I did for a while.
For more than a week?
For about 2.5 weeks, and then I picked up Gudis. Oh, okay. And then I didn't have any defensemen, and then I eventually picked up Letang, and I've run with Letang and Gudis for a while.
Yeah, okay. I don't know. Like, Nick, the strategy works, I agree, but you need ads, and like the way you guys you specifically burnt through more ads than you. So like, I know you think 4 come playoffs is enough, but having those extra 3 could be a big difference. And even him, like, he's now at the point where he's 5 over the cap now. Yeah. So that could run into problem. I know week 1 of the playoffs, you're going to lay everything out. Everyone's going to use every ad they can or what need. Right?
See, I actually don't think I'm going to do that. I think that the way that my team is set up, I have to either win my way or I will lose my way, right? Mm-hmm. So if I go into that week and I go Vasilevsky, Rask, and they pick up 2 shutouts for me, I'm probably winning that week. Where if I go in and Vasilevsky gives up 6 and Rask gives up 5, there's absolutely no way in hell I'm winning that week. Mm-hmm. So having ads at that point is irrelevant. So what I'm hoping to do personally is if I get in and my goalies are hot, now the ads are worth using. If I get in or if I don't get in and my goalies are weak, it's irrelevant. I don't need to use ads. And I don't say that as in I'm going to throw my standings, but I also have to make the point that if I'm not going to win at that point, it is a detriment to try and get a higher draft position. Mm-hmm. So again, I'm not going to throw it, but hey, if I'm down 7-2 because my goalie shit the bed, doesn't matter if I use 7 ads. I'm not going to recover, right?
That's a good
so
point.
I'm kind of like,
yeah. Okay.
So
I'm more
that's
thinking,
why I'm not as nervous, but
yeah. I more think like if you're in a scrap in that first week, you use a couple ads, and then you're in a fucking fight of your life the next week. By the time you get to the money rounds, you're gonna have nothing left. That's what I.
Yes.
Those are the rounds that matter.
But look at what happened with Jesse's in my battle way back in the whatever it was, week 3 or whatever, where I used all my ads. He used all his ads, and I think I won by a couple points on the last day. And at the time, I'm pretty sure you said like, man, you used way too many ads. And I was like, yeah, but you don't know if this is going to come back and help me. Yeah. Looking back on it, if I didn't use those ads and go crazy after Jesse, and it was just like, it's just a loss, I can make it up elsewhere, he'd be in the playoffs right now, and I'd be chasing him with 1 spot left.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So, like,
yeah, you're right.
I'd rather have more ads and not have a chance at the playoffs right now. No. So I got to take my positives.
Well,
when
yeah,
I can,
and
right?
that's kind of fair enough. That's a good point.
But
I'm
yeah.
more talking about too. There's teams that have it locked up, clinching playoffs above the ad threshold and still using ads.
Mm.
That's the only thing I like.
But who do they drop? They don't all have more than one guy. If they had 3 guys they could drop, I'd be scared because they could go back to back, back to back, back to back, and in 3 ads add 6 games,
Yep.
or even do that with 4 ads for 8 games,
Yep.
and then all of a sudden you're killing somebody. But if you can only have one flexible spot, so you're adding one guy and then a back to back and then one guy, you're really maybe only adding 2 games with 5 ads. So like if
Totally
you go
agree.
that
Yeah.
way about it, it's really not a benefit.
Yeah.
So
You don't think
it's up to the other managers to make sure they do it properly.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, I'll leave it at that. All right, moving on to Beefy Steve. Do or die for Steve, really. It's been do or die for him, and he's gone 0-2. Now his back's against the wall now, against one of the top powerhouses of the league. Really.
It's always fun to watch. It's always fun when Steve's up against the wall. You know he's not going to go down quietly.
So for the 3rd week in a row, Steve's got 2 new goalies in the net. Two. You wouldn't, if you said at the beginning of the year this is someone starting goalies, you'd be like, what? But it makes sense a little bit at this point. Ottinger and Nedeljkovic. Nedeljkovic.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I gave this to Dylan. He's just got the better team, but I don't discount Steve having a possibility to win. I don't know. I don't know what he's gonna do because he's in that same ad situation that we talk about. So I don't know how much he's willing to do that and sacrifice a chance at winning the consolation bracket too. So who knows?
I think that he will use all 7 ads this week. I'm strongly convinced of that. I think if he has anything to say about missing the playoffs, he'd rather go into consolation with 0 ads and have said, I gave my best at making the playoffs.
Yeah.
This year specifically, I don't think anyone's really happy to miss the playoffs this year. And I mean, that usually goes all years, but still, like I think that I think it's almost all but set in stone that Steve's going to use 7 ads, and he's going to start his 2 goalies off the top. And I mentioned this to you earlier, the niche benefit to Nedeljkovic, which is why I add him in my other pool, is that because Carolina's cap situation, they play Nedeljkovic. The next day they put him on NA, and then he doesn't get called up again until the next game. Yep. So when you can slide him to NA, you add a spot on forward on the off day, you drop that forward, slide him back onto your team, play a night, slide him back off your team, add a guy, and then that way you're basically adding goalies as well for free ads. Mm-hmm. And that's why I think he has a unique potential advantage, because both his goalies they're not going to get a lot of starts, so he's not going to win probably wins and saves. Well, but I think he can win save percentage and goals against, and then drop those goalies and go all in for forwards. And I think that's what's going to be
an interesting thing going on in Dallas, and I don't quite understand what's going on, but Jake Ottinger's got the net. I don't know why, or he played back to back. Well, but he also played the back to back on the weekend. He played both games, which was surprising. In the first game, he let in 4 on 26 shots. So like see him in the second game as well. There's something going on there. You're right. Hudobin is not great, but you would assume that he's going to be at least playing the back to back. But it's interesting. That's one to watch. I think he's popping off.
Yeah, Dallas is a mess.
Yeah,
I don't know what's going on there, but they're a mess right now. I don't know. I mean, it doesn't help that you're missing Sagan. You're probably your number 1 center, right?
Yeah,
a team without depth at center who's yeah, right. So I think this just could be one of those years where they struggle, get a top draft pick. Watch like Dallas win the lottery or something, and then it's like, are you kidding me? But anyways.
All right, let's hop into my matchup with Beer Buds. We'll save the pivotal matchup, the marquee matchup of the week for last. I'm going back to betting on myself, even though retrospectively, this is the same kind of situation as last week where I'm not making any moves. I'm missing a player for the full week. Potentially missing 2 players again if Georgiev is pretty much useless. Somehow lost the net to Kincaid. I don't quite get it, but he did.
Yeah, I don't know.
So like in a normal week, I thought it'd be a slam dunk. I'd smash this week, but we're just gonna let it ride. And if I can pull off a win, I can pull off a win. And Beer Buds, this one's in his. But I'm gonna pick myself again. But maybe I should switch and pick Beer Buds because it worked last week. So
see, I actually think you guys are gonna tie. So I really struggled trying to pick the winner and the loser in this one. I just usually to me that tells me it's going to be a tie because I can't pick a clear side or a favorite. I feel like it's going to be one of those weeks where it's like a 6-5 or 5-4 matchup, but it's going to be like one person has 200 saves, the other person has the 1 goal against. One person has 5 wins, the other person has 950 save percent. It's going to be one of those split
I think
weeks.
the biggest difference is going to be goalies, and it's going to be really tight on the saves and wins. And then he'll have the benefit of using ads to just take those from me. That's my theory.
And he will be using ads. Same thing I said with Steve. There's no point missing the playoffs this year. Like he's gonna use his ads. I'm convinced of it, and that's what I think puts you at a big detriment, especially when you don't have Wilson. And did you say you had another guy that you don't have?
I don't. I have Georgiev, who last week played 1 period, and this week he'll play tomorrow, I'm sure, because they're on a back-to-back. But right now he's lost 3 starts to Keith Kincaid, and he's played 1 period. So like, when you're not playing over Keith Kincaid, and he wouldn't be on my roster if I right now if this was like a do or die for me. I'd be like that's one of my spots that like we touched on earlier is a rotation spot, right? To do those ads.
Yeah.
So just placeholder right now.
And that's again why I think you would have benefited, or at least if your ads, I think it's benefit to have 2 rotation spots. I think anybody who has that flexibility will always have the advantage over somebody who has 1 flex spot.
Yep.
That's why I also suggested early splitting your draft picks and having 4 or 5, maybe even 6 at the very end of the draft, because you're going to find 3 or 4 bodies like over the course of the season, but that still leaves 2 or 3 body spots for flexibility.
I feel like I have that with my team. 2 or 3.
Yeah, I think you're set up nicely.
2 or 3. That's kind of what I was hoping for. All right. Marquee matchup of the week. Mr. Maverick. Take it away. You versus Ben. I pick you.
Ben's going to win.
I think you're going to win this one. Ben's going to remain winless heading into the last week of the season. And part of it has to do, he didn't get his goalie in today. It drives me crazy. He's gonna miss a shutout on Carter Hart because they're playing the terrible New York Rangers who are just awful. And just a thing like that. Just let's say Carter Hart gets in there, gets a shutout today. That would have slammed it. This week you would have been in trouble right off the bat. Because you'd be down in saves, you'd be down in it all. But instead, he's left you open at least a fighting chance. You got a good start.
I need Vasilevsky to step up for me this week, big.
Yeah.
I need him big time.
Big time. Got a good start too. Yep. First game of the week, that early game we were talking about, game-winning goal. You're there. Yep. So
on the guy I added today.
Huge.
I added Arvidsson because I didn't necessarily want to use the ad, but Hyman only plays 2 games this week.
Yeah.
So I was like, I can't. When there's, I think 3 teams who have 2 games. I think there's 4 or 5 teams who have 3 games. There's 2 teams who have 5 games. I don't know if that includes postpones. I believe it doesn't. I don't see how anyone can play 5 games in a week. No. But the rest have 4 games. So when you're one of like 10% of the teams who only play half the amount of games, like I couldn't. I had to get somebody who shot more, especially when I felt like shots. I had to get back to my analytics, right?
Yeah.
So I had to pick up something.
Funny you say that. So. I forgot to mention in my matchup too. Like McKinnon and Landeskog only have a 3-game week, so that's another reason why Ben has.
That's true.
Sean has a little bit more advantage on me, I think. Yeah. But yeah, you think
Ben's
Ben's
got
gonna win
3
this
guys on 2-game weeks? Well, I looked at the schedule a little closer, and like He's got 2 postpones already. He's got 2 3-game weeks, and his goalies, he's got 3 goalies that aren't necessarily elite. Markstrom, I consider elite. Samsonov just hasn't got his stuff together quite this year yet. And Hart's ready. I think I called it last episode. He's going to go on his typical tear. Like he does it every year where he goes unbeatable for 5 games and he puts up 3 shutouts over 5 or 6 starts. Like I figured that was going to be the timing for me. This is when he'd start, right?
Yep.
Of course, when Ben adds him. So it's funny if he gets the shutout tonight because it could actually be the start of that. And I'm nervous because, again, if he beats me in goalies, I have no chance.
Yeah, fair enough.
I have no chance, especially with Matthews, although I lucked out on that because Matthews only has a 2-game week.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that could have ruined me quite well, right? So I'm happy with that. So I still think Ben's going to beat me because I feel like I'm going to lose my way into the playoffs. And there's 1 point difference between, like, I just need a tie or the guy's chasing me to lose or tie. So in essence, over the last 2 weeks, anybody who needs to get in the playoffs has to go 2-0. They can't even tie. And I have to go 0-2.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like if things go absolutely perfect and I lose and I miss out on the playoffs, what can I do about it? It's just meant not to be. And if that's the case, whatever. I mean, remember what I said a while ago? If the season ended, I'd be happy and I accomplished what I wanted to accomplish. I got to remember that, right?
And even going back to the very first episode, we did predict you to make it, be the 6th seed, but at the same time, like, we both were not, like, slam dunk. Like, we thought that was a stretch at the time.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And I did say I'd be happy if I stole somebody's spot. I'm not necessarily stealing somebody's spot. Like, I should be in with what's going on right now. I should have had that asterisk beside my name as locked in. And that's why I kind of am half joking, but not really, about losing this week, is that I could lose this week and somebody else could lose and I get in anyways.
Yeah.
So I could lose my way into the playoffs. And the reason why I predicted this, and I said this last episode or the episode before, Ben doesn't have a win. Jamie has 1 loss. That loss came to me at my hands. So it's only perfect if I win against the best team and I lose against the worst team. It's a very me thing to do. So I feel like I'm going to lose to Ben. Somebody else is going to, one of the 2 teams chasing me is going to lose and they'll drop out. And then the following week, I feel like I might beat Joey just because Leonard's coming back. I know this because of my other pool. I'm a little bit nervous of any goalie coming off of not playing for 15 games.
Yeah.
He's playing for a good team, but it could be easy to just give up a couple goals that he's just not quite, the rust's on there. So that could really ruin your goals against or save, right? If he gives up 4 one night on a 20-shot attempt and wins 5-4. So that's the one thing that is making me a little at ease because I know that's coming probably Thursday or Saturday. So heading into my matchup with Joey next week. But if I lose both and somebody wins both and gets in, again, there's nothing I could do about it. I tried my best, and at that point, it is what it is. I'm happy it's a short season, that it wasn't a full season that I,
poured your
put
heart
energy in. Yeah, exactly. Just
you only did a podcast on it every week for the past 10 weeks, but
and my spreadsheets. I do spreadsheets on that and analytics stuff I started with and all that, getting the max amount of games played. I mean, it is what it is, but at this point, I'm already starting the work for next year, and I'm gonna be ready.
Yeah, I have my team. I know 3 of my keeps, and I'm pretty sure I'm gonna let one of the people go that most people might think about keeping.
Wilson.
Might be time to cut ties with him. Everyone else.
Yeah.
See,
I was looking at him, and I don't think I have him as high as I thought he was.
Well, he's dropped down a bit this year. Not playing with OV anymore.
That's true.
But no, he's just these suspension. I don't know if he's worth the risk of a suspension, to be honest. Like, this suspension hurts. Definitely in our league where there's not a lot of roster room. 7 games. If I had him, like, if I was struggling for a playoff spot, he would have already been gone. Like, I would have dropped him last week and replaced him. But but because
and that's when I put my research in, when you were kind of half joking about dropping him, I was looking and being like, okay, how serious am I and how much would I bid? Because obviously you'd have to bid to get him.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I guess it's because he's having a bit of a down year, but I was looking at his stats and I was like, this isn't something that necessarily fits my analytics. But another year where I'm just collecting the best players I can, oh, absolutely, I would go for him. So I was just kind of like, maybe he's not exactly what I thought he was. I think I was maybe inflating his numbers a little bit in my perception for my own bias, but he's still a hell of a hockey player and still a hell of like he's on the fantasy roster for sure, or radar for sure.
Yeah, and he was. I kind of ran similar strategy to what you and more. My strategy last year was a little bit more in line with Nick having like two goalies and like the hitter, and Wilson just fit perfect for the rotation, the solid guy. So I don't know.
I don't think I'm going to go for 3 goalies next year. I think I'm going to stick with my tandem I've already set in place with Rask and Vasilevsky. I still hope that Rask goes to another team like a Colorado or Carolina.
Yeah.
Like, imagine he went to a Carolina and played in front of that defense. I mean, you'd get no saves, so the save percentage wouldn't be amazing probably, but like he'd probably get like 9 shutouts that year if he did that. Like, that'd be insane. But
I don't know.
anyways,
Save percentage can still be up. That's one thing I've noticed.
Yeah.
Grubauer, he doesn't get a lot of shots, but he's still got a high save percentage. 9.23 is still pretty good.
Yeah. Although he does get a lot of breakaways, so like that's good for him. He called that. I watched the next game afterwards, and they had like 4 breakaways in the first period. And I was like, holy crap, did they ever give up?
Yeah.
Like, it's just been a bad period, but like it was literally like 4 or 5, and like wasn't even a period. It was like 2/3 of the first period.
No, I've been watching Colorado for like ever since I like made that trade. I've been watching them more consistently, and yeah, they definitely give up the most of the teams I watch. So it's not fun to watch as your goalie getting breakaway after breakaway.
Yeah,
but it's gonna be a fun.
I mean,
week.
In terms of the final standings, we did a little bit of a rundown. I don't know if you wanted to maybe throw these up on the screen in the last couple minutes here of the podcast to see them or not. I don't know if that matters or whatever, but we basically had the same person. We predict Jamie's going to win the pool. Yeah, we both had him at 18 points. We both had Dylan in second place. Well, I guess you had tied with Dylan, but Dylan would have tiebreak at that point.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess we really have the same 3, 4, 5 between Joey, Nick, and Alex. But I think I said my worst possible situation would be facing Nick. I think the best possible situation for my team would be probably to end up facing Joey. Who do you think is your best and your worst possible matchups?
My best possible matchup is going to be you. That's my theory.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then my worst would be Nick. I don't mind fighting Joey again. I think I could take Joey as long as, like you said, Leonard's coming back too. And that was kind of I got sunk because his goalies had amazing week against me, and I still beat him. So I'd use all my ads, and I would use all my ads. I set my team up. I'm ready to throw down 7 ads a week come playoff time.
So is he.
But I feel like I can make better decisions than someone that hasn't been following the league every day, every game all season long.
Confidence.
Pardon? I am confident.
Good confidence.
Well, if you go back to the first podcast.
The other thing I always wanted to say with you did call that. I
said I'm winning this pool. This pool has my name all over it.
You did say we're gonna end up playing each other because of the matchup we never got.
Yeah.
The first year, so you're trying to will it into existence right now.
Yeah, that's why I'm trying to will it into existence, not because. But I think that dream of it being 4-5 is not possible anymore. It has to be 3-6.
I don't think so. Yeah. And I was just going to say with Joey, the other thing that you have to keep in mind, which scares me a little bit, again, I have the goalies in the other pool, is that once Leonard comes back and Fleury doesn't play every game, he's going to be a little bit out of his rhythm. I don't expect Fleury to be as lights out as he's been. I don't think he's just going to keep playing as good when he gets in half as much, or even if it's 60% of the net he gets. Like, at 2 of every 3 games he's going to play, which means 1 of every 3 he's going to sit. Normally he's playing a lot of those games, and I think goalies get in rhythms with that.
I think Peter DeBoer they'll treat it like Leonard's going to be the backup. He's not going to play the way they were.
So?
I do, yeah.
Yeah.
That's the way Peter runs his team. And if you remember last season when once they got Leonard, Fleury was not playing every other game.
True.
Leonard was the
That's
starter.
true.
Definitely come playoffs,
Yeah.
they were running Leonard every game out there.
Which,
So
if that's the case, I'd probably end up dropping Leonard in my other pool.
that's
If he only got one start a week, I'd have to consider
that's
it.
my assumption of what would happen. They might play him because of rest situations, but do you really want, like we've talked
Yeah.
about before, your goalie's in a rhythm? Do you want to get the top goalie in the league potentially right now out of a rhythm, at least in the West?
He's played
Like
a lot of hockey.
exactly. But some goalies, it's like,
Fleury's played a lot.
but some people play better when they've been playing that more often.
Agreed, absolutely. But they're also spending $4.5–5 million on a backup goalie. So like I feel like their best interest is to try and have them both going at the best, as
Yeah.
opposed to having one going really well and the other one not going. Because at a moment's notice, you might need the other one. And then if they're both playing, and then all of a sudden you need to run with one, I think that's where you get your
Yeah.
increase, as opposed to riding a hot one and then expecting failure. If that makes any sense.
It does. I'm trying to think of like an example of how I think they're gonna run it. I don't know. They'll probably I don't know, once a week maybe a Leonard. But
You also got to remember it's COVID season, which I mean everything changes, right? He might do it just because he's used him so much. He might do it just because they have 4 games almost every week, and he's just like, there's no point running him into injury.
yeah.
Like there's other things like that that I think are going to change the game, and that's what's made this season kind of unique and weird, I think. But
Totes.
I don't think that this goalie availability is going to be something that people can rely on. I think this is a tease of the amount of like unpredictable, unknown goalies like the Lankinens and the Kakinens. Like, yes, they're young, and yes, they're kind of coming into their own. But a lot of goalies have bad second years, right, or bad third years, and I just feel like goalies aren't going to be the same next year.
I feel like this
People are going to
happens
undervalue.
every year. Every single year, right around this time of the season, you'll have one or two goalies that came out of nowhere, and like you said, they don't show up next year. But that's because
Yeah.
there'll be two different goalies that show up next year. Like next year, it might be Cal Peterson and Sorokin who are the goalies that. And it really always comes down to at some point in the season, usually around this point, big goalie on a good team gets injured. Like Grubauer, if he went down right now, it happened last year exactly. Grubauer went down. Francouz came in. He was a good fantasy goalie to have in your roster because they would win. Constant wins. He'd do a pretty decent. He's not a great goalie, but he's a good fantasy goalie in a good situation. And it could potentially happen right now. Like I know I joke about it with Rask. Rask's out for the season, but Halak could come in and be that dynamite fantasy goalie just down the stretch because he's going to get the games. He's in front of a decent team.
That's what I'm hoping is the case with Sorokin, because I know the Islanders held him back early to get him accustomed to it. But if you look over the last 2 weeks, he's basically got every other game. And the Islanders are a top 5, 6 team in the league.
Yep.
So, like, I was hoping that he played more. And there's a part of me that hopes Varlamov gets hurt, obviously. Because if I had a full-time starter on the Islanders to go with Vasilevsky, I'd just stash Kemper or leave him on IR and or even potentially look at dropping him. Because at that point, Kemper isn't as valuable for the remainder of the last couple of weeks, right? And right now with Kemper and Bishop for me on IR, like I'm borderline requiring to drop them because I'm carrying guys on my active roster that are IR, like Trocheck and stuff.
Yeah.
But that's also part of the reason why I've predicted I'm going to lose my way into the playoffs, is that I'm kind of not caring and hoping that the odds are on my favor or on my side and in my favor, and I get in because the odds are so in my favor. And if that's the case and everyone comes back healthy over the next 2 weeks, 2 matchups, I think that's going to make me a much better team going into the playoffs. If that doesn't work for me, I don't think I have a chance against anyone. So I think it's irrelevant how I get in or who I play. But I think it'll be fun. I can't wait.
Yeah, 2 weeks ago, I can't believe it. We got to
fast, man.
Yeah, it's been a quick season. Baseball is around the corner too. 2 weeks away, man.
Yep, I'm excited. Jays look good. We'll have to do a pod if you want to do a chat on the baseball. I'd be down for that.
I do. I got my MLB TV. It's hooked up and ready to go. So I got to do yeah. I was just gonna say past this would be the 4th season in a row where I do like division previews on this channel. So I still got to get around to that. I haven't even dug into any baseball because hockey's been going fast and furious, but it's time. I think it's
I'd
time this coming
I'd
weekend.
totally be down for an episode to do like do our projections, do a show with the like how we each project the divisions.
Sure.
I'd have to do some research, but like if you're down for that, I'd be able to. I know enough where I could pick some of the teams. The problem would be like, for example, the White Sox, where there's like a ton of young guys, like the Senators or whatever, where it's like I know they're young and upcoming. I just don't know the players to keep your eye on.
Yeah, I don't know that stuff either.
Yeah.
I just pretty much do an overview of what's changed, who's come in, like pretty much go out to your store, buy the magazine of the and then read off of it, kind of shit. But all right,
Wicked, man.
take care, man.
All right, cool. Yeah, have a good one.
Bye.